love that song. So that is awesome. Thank you. In my haste to get out the door this morning, because sometimes you run late, and on snowy days, because you always seem to run late, and in my haste to get out the door this morning, I forgot my Snuggie. I love my Snuggie. I got it, and I just absolutely adore being able to sit, have my entire body covered with a blanket, and have my arms free. Like, those commercials were absolutely ridiculous because no one freaks out because they're getting a phone call and they can't do anything. But it is really nice to be able to sit and type on my computer and just be warm and toasty. It's fantastic. And I like being snuggled up. I like being comfy and cozy. But one of the things that I've found is that even though I have that and I like being cozy, I'm not a huge fan of sleep. I like to be doing stuff. I don't love sleeping, as my wife can attest to. We have a couple discussions this week, is that the best word for them? About how I have been staying up way too late. I got a new game system for Christmas. My uncle was not using it, and he said, hey, you can have it. I was like, hey, great, Christmas present. And sleep has not been coming as easy as it was before. I like to play video games, or when she's not here, I'll watch YouTube videos, or I'll read books when I'm really into a series and I can't put it down. I just find that sleeping is just not the first thing that comes. And, you know, when I do sleep, I usually sleep pretty well. I go to sleep quickly, but I just don't like falling asleep. There's so many other fun things to do. But then I always ask myself, why do I have to sleep? I read a book series once where the characters didn't have to sleep, and how much stuff did they get done? And it was like, this was so cool. They were able to learn the piano, and they were able to learn all sorts of different scientific stuff while the world was quiet, and they were able to do other things. So I wondered, why do we have to sleep? And I started looking it up. And you know, that some hypothesize that we sleep because our body is flushing out toxins. You know, that's why. And so when you sleep and you put onions on your feet, they turn black. Have you ever heard that? That when you're sick, if you put onions in your socks, that they'll turn black because it's flushing out the toxins. I don't know if that's true. It just sounds kind of cool. Or there's another hypothesis that we sleep in order for memory to move to our short term, our processing centers back into our long term. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, that's what sleep does. It's able to take memories and push them back and get them in long-term storage. Or it allows our body to heal itself. But I found this probably the most insightful comment about sleep. William Dimmitt, a co-discoverer of REM sleep and founder of Stanford Center for Sleep Sciences and Medicine, said, after more than 50 years studying sleep, that as far as we know, the only reason we need to sleep is that is really solid is because we get sleepy. I love that answer. The only solid reason we have is because we sleep because we're sleepy. And we sleep because we get sleepy. Today we're going to read about someone being sleepy. That's what we're going to be diving into a part of the text and going, what's going on here? Why is this person sleeping? Because that question has a lot more implications in this text than it does in maybe our own life. When you get sleepy, there's all sorts of reasons why. But the question is, why is Jonah sleepy? We're going to be Jonah chapter 1. And we'll be looking at verses 4 through 6. So go ahead and turn there, open up your Bibles or Bible apps, whatever it is. We're going to be spending some time in Jonah today. And I'll go ahead and read for us. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and they each cried out to his own God. And then they threw cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, so that we will not perish." So let's think about, what is the text telling us? What's the text saying here? It's important to recognize, if you don't know this, that on the Mediterranean Sea, storms are particularly dangerous. It's interesting to note that when you look at the ancient world, Gods were both extensions of their culture, but also based on the geography of the world around them. The Jews were a very strange group, because the reason why I believe, one of the reasons, I have lots of reasons to believe in God, one of the ones that convinces me is because you don't come up with one God when you're coming up with a list of gods. When you look around you at the ancient cultures, they pointed to everything and said, there's a god of this and a god of that. And so gods were an extension of the geography of the world around them. The benevolent gods of Egypt are an interesting thing, because in Egypt, where they built up their kingdoms, it was along the banks of the Nile River. And the Nile never overflowed its bounds out of season. There was always a time of the year when the Nile would flood. But in that flood, it would bring up fresh, new dirt, life-giving, nutrient-rich dirt. And they would be able to plant and grow. And so the gods of Egypt were benevolent. They were kind and they were giving. And they would flow to the people and give them life. If you looked, however, at the warlike Mesopotamian gods, it makes more sense. The Tigris and Euphrates would flood any time, and they were destructive, and they'd rip out people and rip out cities. They'd destroy anything put along their banks. And so the Mesopotamian gods were aggressive. They were warlike. They were ready to devour their enemies at the turn of the moment. And so, when you think about that, and then you put it into, you think, oh, that's how these gods are developing in their cultures. When you look at the Greeks lived upon the Mediterranean Ocean. And they decided that Poseidon was the god of the sea, earthquakes, storms, and horses. Neptune of Rome was the god of the rainy sky. It was always dangerous to sail. When you look at these gods that they're building up, these gods that they're creating, they say they're gods of storms. They're gods of destruction. The sea is a dangerous place to be. The Romans had many myths about the Mare Nostrum, our sea, the sea of the empire. And it was, if you talked about this sea that they were a part of, there was always fear. There was always crossing themselves and whatever, the symbol of the Roman people to ward off evil and ward off, it wasn't really crossing, it was some other symbol. It was basically this idea of they wanted to cast out the bad demons of the sea. So this, especially in winter, it's always dangerous to sail in the Mediterranean, especially in winter. If you're sailing in winter, you basically have signed yourself up for a bad time. Paul talks about this when he says, Paul even says in the New Testament, I've wintered in this seaside city because I can't keep traveling. If I try to travel now, we'll most likely get into a shipwreck, and it will be the end of the road for us. So he decides not to do, even though other times he did get into storms and he was shipwrecked on an island. So it makes perfect sense when we see that they're on the sea, on the Mediterranean, and the storm comes up, that these sailors start calling on their god. And this is Poseidon and Neptune. I needed to do some editing, which is why there are fig leaves. But it makes sense that these sailors are calling upon their gods, whatever gods they can come up with. And these are Phoenicians, so most likely Phoenician merchants, maybe from Tarshish, or maybe from the Greek Isles. These may be people who would have believed in Poseidon in a few years, or whatever tribal deities they had at the time. So they begin to call on their gods. And it's to know that instead of Jonah, the prophet Gath-Hefer, getting on a Jewish ship out to Tarshish, he's on a boat with a bunch of Gentiles. It seems almost as if Jonah couldn't wait for a Jewish boat to head out that way. He had to get on the first one he could find. The first ferry, 2,500 miles away from where he was going. So they're heading out. What if they were carrying, and it's also an interesting question, if he's on a boat full of Gentiles, what if they're carrying unclean food sacrificed to idols, or what if they had broken the commands of God and Jonah's just there? But what is he doing? In the middle of the storm, he's asleep. He fell asleep. The question is, of course, why? Why did he fall asleep? Of course, I'm not asking the biological question. He fell asleep because he got sleepy. But we all know the question that I'm asking is the theological one. Why did Jonah fall asleep? we're really asking the same question the captain did in the same way. How can you sleep? Is the question that the captain asked him. He looks at him, he pushes him, and says, well, how can you be asleep right now? Why in the world are you asleep below deck and not calling on your God? Maybe your God will notice us. I think that's interesting. They're begging this passenger who's just paid his way to please call on his God. And let's talk about what this means, or what it meant then. Jonah fell asleep. As we've seen and will continue to see, Jonah is a pretty pathetic prophet. The author wants us to see Jonah as a ridiculous, laughable, satirical character. You shouldn't walk away from the book of Jonah and go, that Jonah was a really good guy. I really like what Jonah did. At the end of the day, you should go, oh my goodness. We should be going, what are you doing, Jonah? These Gentiles are calling on their gods, and they don't even exist. Why aren't you, O prophet, calling on yours? Who does? We're supposed to go, oh my goodness, Jonah, what are you doing? We should be gobsmacked by someone so ridiculous. There are high points and low points in the life of Jonah, but this is one of the low points. There's a high point just coming up in a couple weeks we're going to get to, and it's a good thing. We can read it, and we can take notes from it, but there's some really bad low points, and this is one of them. How can you sleep? Why are you asleep? And I think here's why. He's given up, and he's apathetic. Jonah has checked out. He was done. He was no longer the man he was in Gath-Hepher when the word of the Lord came to him. He's completely done with that kind of life. He decided to run and was apathetic. In this moment, Jonah is weak. I don't want to make a big deal out of this because Jonah is not depressed or in need of a hug. Jonah knows what he has to do. And Jonah has the ability to do what he's called to do. And instead, he chooses to not do it. Chooses to not go where God has commanded him. Jonah is being weak by ignoring the commands of God. There are times when we are broken and defeated, and when we feel like we have no power. And in those moments we become apathetic, but that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is the man knowing what he has to do, knowing that he has the ability to do it, and being a coward and running. He's given up. He's apathetic. And I think the other side of it is that so he's just ready. If death takes him, he's already turned his back on everything he stood for, on listening to God. So what if death takes him? And also, here's the other side of things. If Jonah were to stop and to call on God, he would have to stop running. You can't run when you're on your knees. If Jonah fell down on his knees and prayed to God to save him, if Jonah turned to look at Yahweh and said, God, I'm listening to you. God, I'm listening to your plan. God, I want you to take away this storm so that we don't die. He would have to stop running from the Lord. And that's the last thing that Jonah wants to do. Jonah wants to book it as fast as he can to Tarshish. And the last thing he wants to do is say, oh, by the way, God, I know that you're now with me and I'm not getting away from where you want me to be because I don't want to die. But I'd really like to not die and to also, he can't do both. He can't get to Tarshish and also call on the name of the Lord. He can't run while on his knees in prayer. And this, of course, leads into what we see in the life of Jesus. I love this because it's so many times where there are allusions in the life of Jesus to the prophets. I mean, Isaiah and the suffering servant makes a lot of sense. That's basically just prophecies about Jesus and what he would do. But Jesus is also a great foil to our character of Jonah. It's another connection that we see here. We're going to be reading out of Mark 4. And this is going to be 35 through 41. It's a good chunk of text, so if you want to write that down or if you want to go ahead and turn there, that's fine. But I want us to read this text and see what it's saying to us. See what it's saying about the life of Jonah and the life of Jesus and how they compare. Mark 4:35 reads, "On that day, when evening had come, he told them, 'Let's cross over to the other side of the sea.' So they left the crowd, and he took them along, since he was already in the boat. And the other boats were with him. A fierce windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him up and said, 'Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die?' And he got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, 'Silence, be still.' The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, 'Why are you so fearful? Do you still have no faith?' And they were terrified and asked one another, 'Who then is this? Even the sea and the wind obey him.'" And that same story can be found in Matthew 8:23 through 27. In verse 41, the disciples are astounded by the miraculous power of Jesus. And that's the point, I think Mark and Matthew are both really, the real thrust of the text is that even the wind and the waves obey the master. Even the winds and the waves obey the rabboni, my master. This is the one that we've decided to follow. The wind and the waves also listen when he rebukes them. But I want to focus on what's going on here with Jesus. He's in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. And of course, is Jesus running from God, apathetic and uncaring? No. How can he sleep in a time like this? They ask the same question. How can you sleep? Call on God. He listens to you. We're not doing anything. He's listening. He would listen to you. Come on, Jesus. And he does say something. Silence, be still. And then he asks the disciples, why were you so fearful? Why does he ask them that? Why does he ask them, why are you so fearful? Because they're on the boat with the Messiah. They're not being tossed to and fro by a sea, on the sea by an angry, vindictive sea god. Neptune isn't blowing the wind at them. Poseidon isn't rocking the waves. Instead, he's looking around, he's going, I'm the Messiah. Do you think God's going to bring his Messiah into the world? Do you think he's going to allow someone to be born who will be the Lamb of God, who will take away the sin of the world, and then let him get killed by a storm on the sea? Do you still doubt who I am? Jesus rests not in apathy. He doesn't say, I've given up, I'm done. He doesn't try to run from God. Jesus rests because he's content. He knows where he stands in God's hands. Storms don't bother the one who is connected to the Lord of all storms. Storms don't bother the person who knows the God above all, the God of all creation, the God of the land and the sea. That doesn't bother Jesus. He knows who his Father is. Jesus rests not in apathy and neglect, but in confidence and the love of God. And so, that leads us to, well, then what must I do? Okay, so it's great that Jonah was apathetic and had given up, and that Jesus wasn't. But what does that mean about me? It means that we need to see where we stand. When we fall asleep, are we sleeping in a place of apathy or sleeping in a place of faith? And I mean, this could be both metaphorically, how do we live our life? Are we trusting? Are we apathetic? Are we neglectful? Do we avoid our duties? Do we avoid our Father because we're scared we have to listen to him if he tells us something to do? Or are we instead listening to him when he tells us something? But the real truth here is, how do you sleep at night? When you fall asleep at night, is it, what will tomorrow bring? When we fall asleep at night, is it fear of, is this storm, the one that I'm weathering right now with my family, is this going to be the thing that takes me out? Or it's, God's got this. Are you apathetic? Are you neglectful? Is your heart in the wrong place? Or are you saying, I can rest in God and what he's doing for me and through me? When you sleep in faith, it's restoring. When you sleep in apathy, it's destructive. And this week, take some extra time to call on God. You can't run from God when you're on your knees. If you're in a place of apathy and neglect, if you're saying, I'm done, I can't handle this anymore, I've got to get away from God. He's told me that I should go to Nineveh. I wrote down the people on my list. I wrote out my list. I know the people I'm supposed to go to, but I can't go to them. I can't listen to the people that God has put on my mind who need this message. What I'm asking you to do is, I'm not asking you to turn the ship around, but I am asking you to stop running. I'm not asking you to completely jump into the sea yet, but I am asking you to stop running. You can't run when you're on your knees. You can't talk to God and also run as fast as you can away from Him. So take some extra time this week. And I'm saying extra time. Not just, I'll pray before my meals like I normally do, but maybe add like a minute in there. Take some specific time to say, God, I want to listen to your voice. I want to not only speak to you, and sometimes we speak at God in prayer, but I want to hear from you. And so this week, pray specifically for these things. Ask God if you're running and you need to stop. If you're sleeping and need to wake up. Or if you're in a place of peace and trust. That's the first prayer I want you to ask this week. God, where do I stand? Where is my heart? And you may already know this. You may be in that place, but sometimes we forget to pay attention to how we feel inside. We forget to pay attention to how our relationship with God is. And so ask this week, am I running? And should I stop? Must I stop? Am I sleeping and do I need to wake up, or am I in a place of peace and trust with you? Then ask God this week to make clear where He's calling you. Jonah knew. Jonah's got to go to Nineveh. He's going to Tarshish. He knows which place he's supposed to be at. And that's why I've asked you to keep that list, wherever that list is of people that you're thinking, these are the people that I know who need the gospel message. Keep that nearby and say, is there anything else that needs to be said to these people, with these people, for these people? Where are you calling me? And ask Him to show you who this week needs the message of Jesus Christ. And that's a really intense one. Because I'm saying, who, God, put in my path the person who needs this message and let me know that they need it. And that's an intense thing that I'm asking you to pray for. And I'm asking you, I'm not telling you you have to pray for this, but what if you did? What if you could give someone the gospel message? What if someone this week needs to hear the word of the Lord and God is waiting to give it to you, but you're not listening? What if you're not able to hear His words because you're running too fast from Him? And I'm asking you to take the chance, take the opportunity to be like Jesus and say, I know what I'm called to do, and I'm going to do it. Ask them who this week needs the message of Jesus. If you need some help in understanding what that means to pray like this, or what it means to hear the voice of God, that's what I'm here for. I'd love to talk with you about that. But if this week, if these prayers have rattled you up, and you're saying, I need some prayer for myself because I'm terrified to do these things, I would love to pray with you and for you. Whether it's right now or whether it's after the service, I'd love to talk with you about what it means to live like this. To not run from God, but run towards where He calls us. So we don't end up in the belly of a fish. Please stand as we sing these last closing songs.
All right, I have a couple that I just felt like were appropriate for the message. So we'll sing.
Thank you.
show me where I fall short? I'm asking you today, can you show me if I'm sleeping? Can you show me if I'm running? Can you show me if I'm awake? Let that be real. Let me understand that. Lord, I pray for everyone in here that as we ask these questions, that we do not feel shame and condemnation, but instead you would give us your Spirit to stand up and say, I want to make a change. Lord, I want to run towards you. I want to hear your words. And so this week, as we go from this place, and as we fall on our knees in prayer, as we pray every moment, every waking moment, let us hear your voice speak back to us. Let us hear you tell us where we can do better and where we're doing well. Give us the courage and the ability to know where it is that we are supposed to go, and then the heart to actually do it, to put our feet under our desires and to bring your message. Lord, if there's anyone in our lives, in any one of our lives, who needs your word, let that come to our mind this week. Give us the strength to actually say something. As small as it may be, or as big as it may be, lead us in that way. We know that you're a God who hears our prayers, and we pray all these things through the name of Jesus Christ and in the power of your Spirit. Amen.